brought to you by Brand South Africa.
South Africa, a young nation proud of its growth and prosperity, positive about its boundless potential, a nation with a restless spirit, a defiant resolve, a relentless determination to break through the stereotypes, to surprise the world with a fresh approach, smash the obstacles in our path, conquer the forces of doubt. Join us. Work with us, build with us, break ground with us, invest with us in South Africa.
Thank you everybody for turning up. I think we're here to discuss one of the key sectors everybody will agree in South Africa's economy, both past, present and future. It's a sector that employs 500,000 people in South Africa, represents about 7% of GDP, and is the world's fifth biggest mining destination by value. Yet, throughout the last sort of 10 years, decade-long commodity boom, there's indications that the sector has underperformed, and whilst others grew, South Africa's sector actually shrank. So we're going to discuss the issues, why we're at this position and what needs to be done to take the sector forward. And we're delighted to have an esteemed panel with us. Deputy Minister Oliphant, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And next to me we have Dr. Kulani Mkwanazi. Thank you very much. He's the chairman of BHP Billiton for South Africa and the president of the Chamber of Commerce. We have Becky Sibia, the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Commerce. And we have Peter Tamani from the South African Chamber of Mines, yes, sorry. South African Mining Development Agency. So thank you very much all for joining us. Becky, I want to start with you, just to sort of put things into context. If we can pass the mic. In your 2011 annual report for the Chamber of Mines, you talked about a lost opportunity over the past decade for South Africa, and I'll quote you here. You said, the sector continues to underperform, which raises justifiable concerns about acceptable levels of sustainability in the future. Now, these are strong words from the Chamber, and these are your words. How did we get to this stage, and what do you identify as the key reasons why South Africa is underperforming, even at the time of the upward commodity price cycle?
Mr. England, good evening to you and good evening to the audience. May I, before I respond to your question, just apologize that the panel is only male. I think it is not us who invited ourselves, and there are people who are more competent than ourselves who could have played the role. However, we'll ensure that in future there is appropriate gender representation. And secondly, Mr. England, I know that we may talk about there is an elephant in the room. And when we do that, I want to be clear that it is not our deputy minister. Because when you say elephant, it's an elephant, but we will not be referring to him. And thirdly, when one looks at the mining industry, yes, it has not grown as it should. When we look at the resources, as the deputy minister indicated, non-energy resources, $2.5 trillion US, we should have grown better. We haven't. And really, one may need to say as well, because I think it is important as the deputy minister referred to the issues. For us as the mining industry, we regret accidents which happen in the mining industry. We regret even more the fatalities. Our record around safety is poor. We cannot really provide any explanation because explanations are excuses. We work really hard to fix it. Having put that though, because we are working hard, why are we where we are and why is the situation this doom? We don't want to point fingers because when we do point fingers, it's as if we don't want to accept responsibility. But when one compares the mining jurisdictions, South Africa and a lot of other mining jurisdictions with which we compete, the issue always comes to infrastructure. For us, we struggle with the railway infrastructure. We struggle with the electricity infrastructure in terms of now the cost, but also availability, and the water infrastructure, among others. May I just use one example? And it may appear that I'm zeroing on that example. We have Northern Cape, which has the manganese. 80% of the manganese of the world is in the Northern Cape. However, for us as the country, we have only 23% of the world market. Why? We can't get it to the market. There may be an issue about beneficiation, and we do need to say we need to beneficiate more. But for us, we are struggling with the infrastructure. We are engaging with the government and saying, let's have partnership with the government. There are areas which are working, and they are working well. There are areas which are not working well. And therefore, for us, through the facilitation, wonderful facilitation of Brand South Africa, we need to be saying, Team South Africa, let us ensure that we win. For your information, Bafana is not in the African Cup of Nations because for some reasons we are struggling with teamwork. And therefore, we need to say, government, the mining industry, and indeed the organized labor, state-owned enterprises, let's partner to ensure that South Africa wins. That one, we are still struggling to ensure that our teamwork is at the level it should be and it could be.
Okay. Thank you, Becky. Mr. Deputy Minister, now we'll talk about infrastructure, I'm sure, much more as one of the key constraints. But we talk about teamwork and the mining sector, the private sector and the government working together, and there is the elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room we know is nationalisation. And that's caused unease among the private sector, the mining companies. Your minister has said it, other ministers have said it. This year is going to be critical. We've got the policy conference coming up in June, and executives say this is a risk and it's an opportunity. The opportunity is the debate around nationalisation is put to bed. Is that going to happen?
You know, in this country, we pride ourselves in the way we debate things and put them to bed. In fact, this democracy came about through proper dialogue, discussions, and we're able to have a sustainable type of democracy that we see now. Now, it's not, it sometimes becomes very fashionable for people who don't like certain topics to want them to quickly go away. And they simply don't. The issue of nationalization has been a debate that has taken place in the ruling party. That debate is not concluded. There's a research team that has put its report to the NEC of the ruling party, which has been taking place over this weekend. After that process, that report will be given to the public of South Africa to discuss, debate, engage, and the ruling party will have a policy conference to finalize the matter in a policy conference. That will be taken also at the end of the year. A decision will be taken as to which way we're going. Now, you know, the proponents of nationalization have also been asking us the question. You know, we hope, Deputy Minister, you support us in this one. The opponents are also saying the same. So I'm just staying there to say, let's finish the discussion. We can't close the discussion just like the Deputy Minister says this, so it's going to happen. It's a democratic country. We must allow views to flow. We will come to a conclusion that is responsible as South Africans. We are a rules-based country, so there is no way that we can just be reckless as some people want us to be. But please, on the other hand, this debate is not coming about because of somebody dreaming that, you know, let's engage. It came about because there are realities in this country. The levels of poverty are very high. Unemployment, huge. Inequality, South Africa is not doing well at all. So how do we address those? I think that's the direction the debate is taking. But having said that, so I've been crisscrossing this country, including the provinces, the province that Mr. Sibia is talking about, to just pass this message to the mining industry or those that we could engage. That partnership is very key. And but there are conditions on our side. The partnership that we seek is for the companies to comply with the laws of the country. That's bottom line. If we don't comply, obviously, you know what the consequences are. And also to say, how do we go forward in the policies that are evolving, beneficiation, and issues of rehabilitation, as in the charter, concurrent rehabilitation, etc. And I can say that the reception, we're doing very well at that level. But sometimes when we debate in public, it's like we're at each other as a country. We're not. We will find solutions for this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Minister. Kulani, just to sort of take that forward a little bit, I think there is a general sense in the country that nationalisation, particularly expropriation, is unlikely to happen. There's a recognition that it would damage the country can't afford it. But there is talk, obviously, about more of a state role in the mining sector, and the mining company was launched, the state mining company was launched last year, African Exploration. From an industry perspective, does that concern you, or do you think there is space for a mining company? And we're also hearing, you know, the reports and speculation coming out of the NEC meeting, the Deputy Minister talk about as proposals that maybe there could be changes to the tax regime. So on those two issues, one, is there space, and are you comfortable with a state-run mining company having a role in the industry? And two, is there scope for taxes to be raised here? I mean, have the mining companies had it too easy here?
Thanks, Andrew. Good evening. Right from the beginning, the mining industry, as represented by the Chamber, accepted that there could be a state-owned mining company, and accepted that, or observed that it wouldn't be the first one. We already have state-owned mining companies in the mining industry, Alexco, Petro SA. However, what we insisted on was that state-owned mining companies must be subject to the exactly same rules as everybody else is in the industry. We like competition, but we also like a level playing field. We like to make sure the game, the rules of the game applies to everybody equally. There's no holy cows in the industry. There's no favoritism in the industry. If the state wants to play in the industry, they must play exactly the same game as we all play. Full stop. I'll hasten to add that I'm very glad that I've now heard the minister several times also insisting that that will be the case. About a year ago, we accompanied her on a roadshow, And in Canada, somebody asked the minister about a regulation that makes it easier for the state-owned mining company to obtain, to go through environmental regulation approvals. She said she's going to repeal that regulation, just to make sure that she indeed properly level this playing field for all of us. And that's comforting to us. We're looking forward to engaging with the state-owned mining company. We're interested in even discussing partnerships. Oh, for me, I'm interested in evaluating the application to the chamber, for example. Or to some coming to the issue of the tax, my understanding is that our tax regime, royalty regime, and so on, was recently formulated and put into law and benchmark across the globe, and it is in line with lots of other competitive mining countries. I'm not sure what sort of tax regime you're talking about. I'm not sure I would like to speculate too much about it. But obviously, if that tax regime disadvantages this country from an investment perspective, then we'll feel the pinch. Investors go to where the regulations are competitive, they're attractive for investments, and if we put a tax regime that is worse than everybody else, then we'll continue not attracting investment in this country. And I hope that's not going to happen, because we badly need investments.
Thank you very much, Colin. Deputy Minister, just on the state company, the African Exploration, what does the department see as a role? Is it, because I hear this all the time, that as long as it's on a level playing field, nobody has a problem with it. But is there clarity on that, or is there ambiguity? I mean, from your perspective as the department, how do you view the role of that new company?
No, that vehicle is already operating. You recall that the state-owned mining company, African Exploration, Finance and Mining Corporation, has already some operations in Mpumalanga in the coal mining, for instance. I think what informs this is that, it's a situation where we've got a country with such resources, but our, utilities suffer to be able, we compete like for our coal pay prices that are paid by those who are importing coal. Just to give an example. Eskom has got to bid for coal as if we don't have abundance of coal in the country. If you want electricity to be cheap, you want the inputs for that electricity to be also affordable. So that's what we're doing, basically. Looking first of all, into the energy commodities to be able to make our inputs for energy cheaper. Then it will help the companies who are complaining about high electricity costs. I'm just giving an example to say, we see this more as a benefit, not as a competition whereby the chamber want to now today evaluate their own applications. No, sir. You must firstly go and get the South Africans to elect you to be a custodian of their mineral resources. But for now, we are going to do it, and we are doing it in a responsible way. There is no favoritism. We are trying to find ways of assisting South Africa to grow. That is the direction of this state-owned mining company. And it has been there many years ago. I mean, we found it there, but we're trying to consolidate. I think the key thing is to try and consolidate all the mining activities and assets of the state. Not Alesco on one side, another coal on the other side. And we've got a lot of, like IDC, for instance, having some interest in other mining companies. So this thing about the country having an interest in mining is nothing new. What we are doing is consolidating already what we have. So there shouldn't be problems in terms of the issues that Dr. Mkonanzi is raising. That's not the intention.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Peter, I mean, obviously, there's always seems to be quite a lot of focus on the government and what government should be doing. But clearly there has been a slow pace of transformation in the country since 1994. And the mining sector is a sector which that did flourish under the previous regime, and some would say has been slow to transform. So if we want government to do X, Y, and Z, it's not a one-way street. What should the mining companies be doing? Because should they be doing more to push transformation? Did they bring this debate around nationalisation on themselves. And going forward, what are the companies need to do to ensure that the cries, the complaints about the lack of redistribution of wealth doesn't get louder and louder?
Thank you, Mr. English. The thing is that you should be careful when you say they're not doing enough. I think, Mr. Mkhwana, as I said, we have to work together as a team. But the truth be told, yes, we as an industry, we have brought this upon ourselves. For instance, as of last year, February, South Africa is the most unequal society in the world. We surpassed Brazil, which was number one. Now we are number one at the moment. And now for a country so endowed with so many minerals, so rich, that you will have such a huge disparity between the haves and the have-nots. And unfortunately, also that haves and have-nots has got a racial connotation to it as well. It is very, very difficult, and it's very dangerous for our democracy. As to what the government should be doing, the transformation part of it is not only in terms of money, in terms of the infrastructure. But remember also, the government made an agreement with Kumba for a monopolization of an infrastructure. Also in the same quarter that Mr. Sibia referred to, next to the manganese deposits, in this case, Kumba Resources. They have got an agreement with Transnet, whereby the so-called superhighway is for the sole use to Saldanha. And those kind of agreements are the ones that actually are impeding, one, transformation, and two, growth. Because imagine if that superhighway was open to everybody, how many developments or new mines have developed around the area? For argument's sake, the cost per ton from Sishen to Saldanha is almost 80% less than the normal rates of other mines around the area. So obviously, if you're going to be paying more cost per ton to take your commodity to the harbor, and before you even take the cost of mining, it becomes prohibitive. Hence, there's no development on that side. But another thing is that let's talk about the issue of the exclusion of PDSA, for instance, the exclusion of new junior mining companies. The challenges that we have here is that the major companies have got deep pockets. The presentation that was made last week in terms of developing another corridor to Saldanha vis-a-vis the one that's going to Kucha, whereby Kucha is going to be much more expensive from the Northern Cape as opposed to going to Saldanha. And then they say, let the junior miners use the Kucha line to PPE and let the big guys use the one Saldanha. To me, I thought it was a little bit unfair that the junior guys who are coming into the industry not with enough money are now going to pay 3 times what it's supposed to be costing other people. So this is actually a mixture of issues. I mean, the minister said we must not talk only about infrastructure. Even we said initially, long ago, we've been propagating that the state must take a huge interest and active participation in the mining industry. We've been saying this all along. And remember, this is not a new thing. It's not about nationalization. I mean, if you look at the issue of Kumba, for instance, before it was owned, it was ISCO, just owned by the government, 100% so. Sasol was owned by the government, 100% so. So now, if the government's going to come in today and say, let me try and use the revenues from the minerals to address the ills within our society and communities, and it becomes a problem. And we're saying that as junior miners, we want to work hand in hand with also the senior miners as well, the big companies also, but also with the government. And I think our relationship with the government has been such that we are real partners with them. And we've been saying all along that beneficiation. Because it's no use we exporting peanuts and importing peanut butter. By the same token, if we are going to export 90% of our commodities and then we import the finished product, what are we doing about beneficiating the very same minerals that we have in abundance before we do it, like everybody else is doing for that matter? So that's where our point is.
Becky, yeah, you have a point to make. Go ahead.
May I just make a comment or two around transformation? for us as the Chamber of Mines in particular, we are absolutely unapologetic that of all the 23 sectors in South Africa, if there is a sector which can stand up and say we have transformed better than the mining industry, I would like to see that sector. We stand second to none. Absolutely verifiable, second to none. I would say even further, we stand head and shoulders above the rest in terms of transformation. One, in terms of the people who have made money, who are billionaires, dollar billionaires, multi-billionaires, multi-millionaires, they are in the mining industry. When one looks at the executives, no apology we have, and we stand really head and shoulders above any industry. And therefore, for us to, when one looks at the gap, probably we find that the people who have contributed to the gap to so that between the richest and the poorest is the mining industry. Because it has created those many rich people, probably the challenge is we should have broadened it. And for us, we are saying, you know, the judgment day for the transformation of the mining industry is 2014. God just doesn't judge us whilst we are alive. He waits us until we die and we go judgment day. And now when we get judged before 2014 with the mining charter which was negotiated by the government, by the stakeholders in terms of the unions, by SAMDA and by ourselves, for us then to be judged before the judgment day, it is grossly unfair. When one looks at the Northern Cape, we are saying somewhere between 37 and 50,000 jobs would be created in South Africa because of manganese. Lo and behold, the superhighway my colleague is referring to, Sishen Saldanha, we are saying let it be opened up to everybody. However, we find that people are looking at the white elephant called Kucha, which was built by the government, knowing that it is not commercially justifiable, but politically justifiable. And they are saying now, let us feed it with the manganese in the manner that is going to be uncompetitive. And for us, we are saying, let's engage in the debate. It is inappropriate. Let's engage in the debate with the emerging and medium-scale miners. When we say, be exposed to the highway to Saldanha, because we are saying, Kucha for niche. And sometimes the emerging and small-scale miners, they think the niche refers to them. We are saying it's the niche. Small producers, not necessarily the emerging and medium-scale producers. It may be the big ones because they produce the niche portion of the manganese. And therefore, sometimes we make proposals. Sometimes some people are good at disposing, and they dispose even that which is good. For us, we are saying transformation, we are absolutely committed. Anybody who needs to criticize us, let them not criticize us ideologically, they don't criticize us emotionally, let them come with facts. Fact-based issues. This is what we present, and when we present the facts, we are faced with the fiction.
Okay. Deputy Minister, I mean, maybe you could also comment on that. I mean, are you happy with the pace of transformation? You said it's a challenge.
No, I'm not. This debate has taken place in Parliament about for instance, the mining industry transformation. There are clearly different views on this matter. We have sought not to take a public stance on the issues. The department said that what we should do is to take the facts that we have to the chamber and debate it with the chamber. Because our interest is not to score points with the mining industry. Our interest is to say we need partnership for the development of our country. And we are going to continue in that vein. But like I said, we've been going in and out of some mining companies. And if you go at that level, that micro level, you really see where the gaps are. For instance, HDSA also includes white women. Now, you go to an area, people are telling us, no, race is still a factor here. You say, just let's disaggregate your demographic representation in terms of the levels. the picture is not good. And we're not saying that we should have anything against white women in the country. But if your compliance is malicious, then you are creating problems for us. Just to give an example. Now, in terms of the communities around whom we mine, it's a major problem. You see, we're trying to find best practice here so that as you get the license to mine from the department, you also have an endorsement from the communities. That's why consultation is very key. But for us to be able to extract all these minerals, the wealth, we rail them, all we talk about, we rail out of the country. We're not putting the same passion at the communities around whom we mine, where poverty is really at its extremes. Just to give an example, on Wednesday, we were in the communities in the Northern Cape. One of those communities is Daniel's Cape, surrounded by 3 mines. But the poverty levels, very high. If you look into the production of Finch, of PPC, of Idwala mine, and you look at that community, it's a pathetic situation. You see, you start seeing some difference. If you go to Postmansberg, where Kumba is starting to give some investment into communities. That's what we need. So, CEO, the passion that you exude about the rail, just do it also with the communities around whom you mine. Then we're going to have a better country. Just lastly, the infrastructure issue, it's an issue that we are also worried about as a country. That's why the cabinet last year took a decision for the president to actually chair the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Commission to be able to deal with these matters because they are real. These are real problems about also the unfair competition that happens, etc. But I thought I should just leave it at that. But the last one thing is about the mining charter. The mining charter, amongst others, has got targets of 2014. But also is spacing you to say, this is what you must do, this is what must happen in terms of procurement, etc., etc. The mining industry is not doing well, sir. If you look into their figures, their round figures, yes, we spend billions in procurement. But if you check into where that has gone to, I think we must just do more work together. Then we will understand, because sometimes if I sit in Pretoria and don't do the rounds in the mines to be able to look into these things, then we're going to have beautiful pictures and be happy. I just wanted to say that let's go down and look at the real situation on the ground. This will assist us not to be having some sort of differences that really do not exist in practice.
So what you're saying is the status quo cannot continue. The status quo in the current way mining is working in this country, whether it's in employment, whether it's looking after communities, whether it's in beneficiation, whether it's in the role of the state, as it stands today, the mining sector cannot continue in its current form. Things are going to have to change.
Definitely.
And the government will push that change.
No, we're going to push the change. We say we've mined for over 100 years in this country, and we can see the devastation. There's growth. I mean, let's not also just paint a negative picture. We are seeing the billionaires that you're talking about, the millionaires, some people who are coming up, etc. But our transformation was not about that only. It was also about the communities around us, you see, broad-based. That's what we're saying. So having mined for over 100 years, this definitely, because fortunately, we are endowed with minerals to go for the next 100 years and plus. You see, in terms of our mineral endowment and deposits. We cannot do it like we did it in the past. We must do better rehabilitation. We must take care of the communities. Make your profits, but know that you've got responsibility here.